We start the story with a group known as the Task Takers, who come to the aid of an Order of Heroes wizard known as Jormungandr Geth, whose estate is under attack by undead abominations. There they find he is sheltering a strange artifact, a black heart. While attempting to leave the cellar, they encounter the Order of Heroes legend Asher Asterion, who is also the son of the headmaster of the Order of Heroes. This hero, in his pale-skinned, red-eyed fury, slaughters all of the Task Takers and Jormungandr himself. After mentioning some kind of betrayal, he then takes the black heart for himself, and we see a dark figure among the flames, who turns to look at the observer of these events, Aelena Farside. We are then transported to where we meet the actual player characters. They're captive together on a ship. There's Ace, the human barbarian, who wears face wraps to hide his identity. Asher, the human druid. Briar, the wood elf wizard. Kurun, the moonlake elf farrier cleric. And Rowan, the half-elf fighter. They meet Aelena, a hero-seeker oracle for the Order of Heroes, and Balin, the true captain of the ship they're held captive on. They eventually break free and take back the ship and execute the pirate false captain Kerrigan Kane. Kurun has a bunch of scary visions of some kind of demon thingy that speaks to him. They meet Bolt, a wholesome beloved human man who must be protected at all costs. They arrive at most of the party's destination, the Kalepi Isle. Here they run into people like Kurun, the Nermine, but these are bad guys. Briar and Ace kill a snake in the jungle, and the story of this just keeps changing each time it gets told. They meet the friendly Firbolg inhabitants of the island who have relations to 3 of the party members. Ace was mentored by the tribal chieftain's son Malachi, while both Asher and Briar discover they were looking for the same person, Tambrin, who is Asher's father-in-law and Briar's uncle. But Tambrin was killed by these Nermine intruders and is now reincarnated as a little tree ant thingy. They go to a temple to stop the bad Nermine dudes who are sacrificing people into a giant fountain of blood. There's a black heart bobbing around in there. Sound familiar? But the party kills the bad guys and rescues the last remaining captive, Grizzy, who's basically Balin, the ship captain's kid. From here, the party sets off on the ship back to the mainland of Eswund. While at sea, they encounter the admiral of Eswund's rival nation, Zahath. An ancient mythological sea creature known as Abyssius destroys the admiral's ship, and later on, Eswund will get blamed for this, increasing tensions between the nations even further. While at sea, Grizzy dies, and it's really sad. But when the party gets back to the mainland at Midcove, they see a parade being held for the legendary hero Asher Asterion. Sound familiar? But he doesn't look all corrupty and evil-like we saw in the prologue, and is actually pretty friendly to the party, even as much as inviting them to a banquet, which they go to and have a nice time. Asher announces that he and his tiefling girlfriend are getting married, and some of the Temple of Light people are disgusted by this and object, ruining the night for everyone. Also, some of Grizzy's invention blueprints were stolen, and this will come up later. But the party saves the town a bit and buys a ship, which Bolt will eventually be the captain of. They head out towards Lowell before Lake Grasp. On the road, they meet a naked roguish bard named Martison Ethiel, who they help to hunt down the people who betrayed and left him for dead. While the party tried to take a more communicative approach to conflict management, Marty decides to escalate things to combat, leading to a bunch of death. Then enters the boss man of one of these freshly killed thugs who demands a life for a life, and he takes it. Initially targeting Briar, but then Ace steps in and takes the brunt of the attacks, sacrificing himself in her stead. Satisfied, the big bad guys leave, with Ace dead on the floor and the party reeling from the chaos. But in comes Rowan's old mentor, Jathril Marant. He tries to console them, but the true aid comes from the town's Temple of Light Temple Mother, Kalandra, who claims she was told by Aelena 2 years ago that these events may happen, and that she would know what to do when the time came. With the diamond provided by Aelena, Kalandra successfully revives Ace, who then reveals his face and true name as Dominicus. They track down who they believe to be the culprit behind stealing Grizzy's schematic blueprints, and this leads them to Xander Daxtrin, who has built this world's first Warforged using Grizzy's blueprints. But the party kills it and makes Xander vow to give credit to Grizzy for any of the breakthrough work he does using Grizzy's knowledge. Kalandra helps Kurun purify his phylactery, which is successful, and Kurun no longer feels the demonic pull from within it. They take off and head towards Lake Grasp, and along the way they encounter Dacian, a large barbarian woman who recognizes Dominicus from Zahath. But it's a peaceful interaction. Later on in the journey toward Lake Grasp, they discover mysterious undead happenings caused by a corpse fairy assembling an army, which they quelch. As they arrive to Lake Grasp, they see a mysterious dark figure in a raven's mask leaving the city. The inhabitants of the poor district known as the Fingers are very sick. Some of the party attempts to help these people, but inevitably they catch the sickness themselves. A great reunion is held at the Sleeping Moon Inn, where we meet a bunch of the characters' family members, but this good time doesn't last, as the extent of the sickness begins to reveal itself as a plague that turns people into zombie-like infected. The party seeks a cure from the city's alchemist, Amansar, but he's a huge butthead. Eventually, they're reluctantly able to work with him to start brewing a cure for the plague. Rowan and Briar's dad, Arrel, meet an eccentric man named Mr. Silence, who goes on about how he's destined to fulfill a prophecy and take over the world. While trying to seek aid from the Order of Heroes, they realize that Mr. Silence has executed on his plans to start a revolution by releasing the infected as his instruments of chaos into the Rings district. There is a race for the brewing of the cure as Karun, Dominicus, and Asher all complete their transformation into fully infected, leaving just Briar, Rowan, and Amansar. These last remaining deal with a threat of some guards working for Mr. Silence, and they now know that the coup and destruction of the entire Rings district is now about to commence. After the despondent night of brewing, the cure is finally finished and they begin to administer it to the infected party members, who are now finally able to be back in the fight. Though worse for wear and out of time, they have to act quickly to prevent Mr. Silence from carrying out the rest of his plans. Through clever coordinated tactics, the party is able to single out Mr. Silence and his lackeys and get them reeling as they dispatch each of them until only a broken and beaten Mr. Silence remains. As Mr. Silence begs for a swift death, the headmaster of the Order of Heroes, Aiden Asterion, and a troop of paladins enters the Hands district from the Rings. They arrest Mr. Silence. The party is rewarded by Aiden, but his sister, Headmother Catherine of the Temple of Light, shows up and kills the vibe by taking over the recovery of the city and reminds the party with her presence the dangers of using magic so openly with those that oppose it. Briar makes magic mushroom donuts and the party goes on a trip. Dacian, the barbarian girl from Zahath, shows up and her and Briar hit it off well. Winky face. Kalandra is in town with the other temple mothers, and she agrees to help Karun and the other Naramine to purify their phylacteries and even potentially the whole Moonlake well itself. Mr. Silence is executed, and Jathril Merrin, Rowan's mentor, has sent a letter saying that he has tracked down the Shadowed Hand guys that killed Ace because of the actions of Martisan, the naked bard guy. The party is supposed to meet him in the neighboring village of Tilo. Karun goes deep into Dominicus' memory to his actual birthing, where they uncover the name Khazrak, who they find out was the Grandmaster Wizard under King Eldrith in Zahath 20-some years ago. But he had sought refuge in Eswend and his whereabouts are now unknown. Dominicus meets a mysterious old woman known as Raven, who asks him to bring her the shiniest chalice and tells him that he can call upon her by looking into the eyes of a raven and asking for its mother. The party kills a creepy creature known as the Kelleg that was responsible for turning Amansar's daughter into stone. They run across the mysterious dark raven masked figure in town again and start to draw some kind of connection to Mother Raven and the masked raven figure. Amansar uses the Kelleg toxins to create a cure for the petrification and bring back his daughter. The party hears news that the two nations, Zahath and Eswend, are officially at war, and the daughter of the king and also his right hand are missing. But the party is now ready to completely finish up in Lake Grasp, as they will head out onto the road to meet with Jathril and Tilo, and finally face down with the foes that had slain Ace.